action find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A.
The verdict of the O.J. Simpson trial, viewed by 150 million people. It's more people than watch presidential election returns. That's crazy.
Because there was trial footage every day, CNN saw its audience increase like 5 times. The success of CNN was not lost on other people. And so there were competing forces coming into play.
How delighted I am that we've now reached this moment when we can firmly announce the starting of a Fox News channel.
Unfortunately, with cable news and the ability or the need to be on the air 24/7, where you're trying to get as many eyeballs as possible at one time, to gravitate toward those stories that are sensational, it brought us the ability to go too far.
Is the JonBenet Ramsey murder investigation turning into a media circus?
Yes, it's tabloid, but on the other hand, it's a tabloid era. And here's the point. Here's where the fear comes into it, I think, Larry. It's the fear that says, gosh, if we don't cover it big time, our competition is. And when they cover it big time, they're going to get a big jump in the ratings. And the first thing is to last. If we're going to last, if we're going to survive, we've got to do it.
What you also see is a whole army of commentators. People who make their business talking about the news.
What I say is what we should do is we should bomb his capability of producing oil. Take out his refineries, his stations, his wells.
They don't have any capability of producing oil.
Well, they're certainly selling a lot of oil.
No,
the networks were doing good journalism, but they became much more preoccupied by profits. It's much cheaper to have someone in your studio pontificating than to have reporters out in the field reporting.
I don't know if any of this is true, but what I've heard is that the father went down, opened this basement room, which the FBI had bypassed.
every single sentence on CNN, perhaps on CNBC, on Fox, on MSNBC, begins with the words, "I think." But after a while, people get confused by what is speculation, by what is innuendo, by what is fact. And as far as the viewer is concerned, be very, very careful of unsubstantiated information presented with great hype.
In the mid-1990s, if you took a look at the list of the 50 most watched shows on cable, the top would be Nickelodeon. Rugrats, Blue's Clues.
Don't you know cartoons will ruin your mind?
Ren and Stimpy had some very surreal, high-concept humor to it. And this is the beginning of the splintering of the television audience and the splintering of the family audience, really. I mean, because with families having 3 or 4 TVs in the house, you had a kid watching Nickelodeon, you had the dad watching ESPN Sports, you had the mom watching Lifetime. You know, they were in their own separate universes watching television.
By the time of the 90s, MTV wasn't merely a music channel. They were having great success in terms of creating shows that incorporated music, but that also were shows and programs that stood on their own.
Yes!
That was cool.
Certainly Beavis and Butthead sort of established what MTV could be, because the show was about people making fun of music videos, just like people in the audience were doing.
Whoa. Check out his neck. Yeah. Just like all these bones and stitches moving around. Yeah.
My manager would call me like, "Hey, you got this big bump as you were on Beavis and Butthead last night."
Do Express!
I sit there just like a donut watching these guys.
Now,
and I find them endlessly entertaining because I know, and you know, and the world knows, these guys are, always will be, and cannot be anything but idiots.
That's right.
MTV has a detrimental, damaging, developmental effect on the sexuality, on the morality, on the spirituality, on maybe even the physical development of our young people.
Now we hit the 90s, and once you can go for an audience of 5 million and have a successful show, you can say, I don't care if the parents don't like this.
Can I tell you something, Miss Ellen?
Of course, Wendy.
Don't with me.
What?
You heard me. Stay away from my man, bitch, or I'll whoop your sorry hoe ass back to last year.
Trey Parker and Matt Stone were two of the funniest people I ever met, and their success story is proof that if you just stay true to yourself, you don't have to do anything else.
People think, oh, you came and did the show and now you're big sellouts. The truth is, I mean, we were sellouts to begin with.
Perhaps there is no stopping the corporate machine.
I mean, we were sleeping in friends' houses, had no money, and then one Fox executive had seen a cartoon we had made in college. He said, make me another Christmas video that I can send out as a Christmas card. And, you know, he gave us like $700, and we went and made this 5-minute short.
I come seeking retribution.
He's come to kill you because you're Jewish, Kyle. Oh, fuck!
It went around the TV community like wildfire.
I mean, it was the funniest thing you'd ever seen in your life.
Go, Santa!
Somebody showed me the short.
Go, G-Day!
I thought it was hysterical. So I called and said, get them in here right away.
Oh my god! They killed Kenny! You bastard!
South Park was able to be topical.
Just call me your old pal, Saddam Hussein.
South Park really, really detests hypocrites.
Christians and Republicans and Nazis, oh my!
Well, okay, Mrs. Cartman, I'll legalize 40th trimester abortions for you.
Could you imagine back then that these people would ever get on network television? Or any kind of television? It's a miracle. South Park is a miracle.
The early 90s, the HBO shows start to kind of come into their own.
And Dan, have I always had these breasts?
A lot of people want freedom. They don't want to go back to the networks, which are saying you can come to us when you'll make more money, but you also have content restricted. You could go to cable and have no restrictions, not make as much money, but have freedom of expression, which almost everybody who works in these mediums wants.
Some of the content truly was, you can't get this anywhere else.
Here at Fantasy Makers, the only limit on the kinds of fantasies is people's imagination.
HBO turned to people who had said, I can't do that on television, but you can do it on HBO.
White people don't trust black people. That's why they won't vote for no black president. Like a black brother will fuck up the White House. Like the grass won't be cut. Dishes piled up, cousins running through the White House, cookouts, basketball goal in the back.
In the late 80s, HBO was just sort of gaining ground for series.
By the 90s, HBO had started to begin its explosion.
When we started doing Dream On, one of the things that HBO said to us was, it's got to be something that couldn't be on network TV. That was shocking, even for us as writers who created it. We were like, oh my God, we can really...
What do you want, baby? Tell me what you want.
911.
You want what?
911.
I've never done that.
Call 911.
You've watched Letterman, you've watched Leno, but what about Larry? Larry Sanders, that is. He's the TV alter ego of comedian Gary Shandling.
Gary Shandling wanted to do a show that deconstructed the kind of show that The Tonight Show was.
Just pretend like you're talking to me until we're off the air, so it won't seem weird. So,
Blah, blah, blah.
The Larry Sanders Show was sort of cathartic because in the world of the Larry Sanders Show, there was a network.
You want me to fuck with your budget? Is that what you want me to do?
So it became this weird funhouse mirror thing where you could use stuff from your misery, from your career as fodder.
I don't take this as a threat, but I killed a man like you in Korea, hand to hand. My boy doesn't want to do any more commercials.
Larry Sanders to me was, you know, aside from being a brilliant television show.
Can you say, hey now?
It was my everyday life.
I'm here for 3 good reasons. Last show, big ratings, movie coming out. Bim, bam, boom.
The Larry Sanders Show was very unique in that it was very deadpan and really groundbreaking in its day.
I think it made people really go, that's the level of work you may be able to do on a cable network.
Oz comes on in 97, and it's set in this fictional penitentiary. Wow, what a show that was.
In Oz, sometimes the things you can't touch are more real than the things you can. For instance, fear, hatred, loneliness are more real to me than a shank and a soul.
It was jaw-droppingly violent. And it's a men's prison, it probably should be. But, you know, it kind of announces the idea that HBO is going to get very serious about doing scripted dramas.
It's finished! It's over!
But HBO really, in my mind, comes to its own in 1999 with The Sopranos.
Sopranos just is one of those shows that was a benchmark. It changed like a lot of things for everybody.
Throw out the handbook. Tony Soprano, the lead actor in a drama, he killed a man. We watched him. We took his daughter on a college tour.
Pretty, huh?
Yeah.
It was just a melding of a guy and a world.
Open the fucking door. Open the fucking door.
And a behavior that promoted all of the feelings that you would have for a guy that you love in a guy that you hate. You know?
Sopranos came on TV, and it really showed us the future, whether we realized that was going to be the future of television or not.
This husband of yours, Carmela, how much we love him.
He's the best.
It's like a father to me.
Just make sure nothing happens to him.
That character in that show was a great inspiration to a great many shows that came after it, including one that I worked on.
You know what I want, Tony? I want those kids to have a father.
They got one. This one. Me. Tony Soprano. And all that comes with it.
Oh, you prick.
Because of the quality of those shows that happened in the 90s, actors no longer felt that it was a come down to come work in television. Audiences started to look towards television for what they had only found before in feature film.
What did I ever do to you except deliver the South?
You shouldn't have made me beg.
Network dramas became very innovative. They were really making a new mark.
Once we started making the kinds of shows that we were making in the 90s, you couldn't shut the door on them.
Get me out.
The 90s is an amazing decade of TV. Some of my favorite shows of all time aired in that decade, and everybody was watching them. There was still that communal sense from the earlier decades of TV, but it was being applied to shows that were reaching higher and farther, and they were great.
Damn it! You know, I think that if parents would spend less time worrying about what their kids watch on TV and more time worrying about what's going on in their kids' lives, this world would be a much better place. Yeah, I think that parents only get so offended by television because they rely on it as a babysitter and the sole educator of their kids. Totally, dude. Good point, man.